I'm really excited to announce our partnership with Heath for World Mental Health Day. Now, Heath is a skincare brand that's particularly close to my heart because of what it represents and what it stands for, which is essentially the management and the elevation of men's mental health, well-being, and performance. So I'm really delighted to say that the first 20 of you who join my online program, which launches today, right here, right now, will not only get 50% off of my program, but you will also receive one of these night kit bags from Heath completely free of charge. Now, the night kit bag is Heath's most popular gift bag and includes a face wash, a relaxing hair and body wash, as well as a repair serum. It's normally priced at £54, but if you are one of the first 20 to join my program today, you will receive this gift bag completely free of charge. The link to join my program is in the description. Now let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to Unleash the Player, football's realist podcast. In today's episode, we're going to do something a little bit different in keeping with World Mental Health Day and the launch of my new online program specifically designed for you guys to take care of your mental, emotional and spiritual health, as well as your performance both in and out of your professional sports. You guys will have noticed that I'm normally the one doing the facilitation. I'm normally the one to hold the space and give the platform for others to have their stories and their voice be heard. And today we're going to switch it up a little bit, and I really want to share with you guys my story and my journey in professional sport and professional football, and some of the struggles that I've been through, and the reason why I do what I do today, and why I have so much passion and love for helping and guiding others, and why I've created my online program as well. I'm going to be joined in the studio by my father once more, Jerome, and we're going to start where it all began at Blackburn Rovers Football Club. So Dad, welcome back to the studio. Really happy to have you here with us again today. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks, Myles. Yeah, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. I'm a little bit nervous about going there with some of these things that we're going to talk about today. But at the same time, I'm willing, and that's the role that I do with others, and people and players are open with me, and I see the growth and the progress. And now I want to also be sharing and open with others as well about my journey and some of my struggles.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the very, very beginning. When all you ever wanted to do was play football.
Yeah.
And be a footballer. It wasn't something, as you may remember, that I ever really wanted you to do, but as a dad, wanted to support you because that was your dream and aspirations, always to play football at the highest level you possibly could. And I can remember going back to you playing as a 15-year-old, where you were first spotted by a then not unknown manager, Avram Grant, who at the time was at Portsmouth, and he saw you playing in an international Great Britain side, in an under-18 group, I think it was. And he picked you out as one of the best players on the pitch. And he spoke to me as your dad after the game and said, I would like Myles to come down to Portsmouth at the time on his return. I'd like him training with our youth team. I see him as a captain. He's going to have a great future in the game. And you may remember, I went to your headmaster, who absolutely refused to allow you to go, of which you obviously had to accept at the time. I think you were doing your GCSEs at that time. And then Avram said, look, I really believe in you. I think you've got a wonderful chance. Go back and speak to the headmaster. So I did. And again, the headmaster was absolutely adamant. If Myles really wants to be a footballer, he's going to have to leave the school. And still remaining very humble, I think it's fair to say you were pretty bright at school, and you did incredibly well with your GCSEs and A-levels. Incredible linguist. You still speak 4 languages, don't you, I think?
Yeah.
Anyway, the long and short of it was that they wouldn't allow you to do it. So you had to then concentrate on your education, which you did, as I said, did remarkably well. until such time as another opportunity came along where you started playing for Canvey Island, I think, with Steve, was it Steve Tilson?
So I went, yeah. So I went and did the pre-season with Steve, which was my first experience of professional, full-time professional men's football. And then Steve suggested that I go and play at Canvey Island. This is at 18.
And you did well.
Yeah.
And even myself as your dad, I was watching you thinking, wow, you've got half a chance, because you're left-footed, and left-footed players always tend to stand out. To this day, I don't understand why that is, but they're all more easy on the eye. And it was very clear that you could play in a number of positions, left back, centre half, even as a striker, holding midfield player. And I remember contacting at the time Steve Keane, who'd had a fantastic record of bringing through young players at all the clubs that he'd been at. And he happened to be at Blackburn Rovers. Anyway, they invited you up to train, which you did. And again, I think you played in 2 or 3 second.
This is also after many experiences of being on trials everywhere and being signed with Leyton Orient.
Oh yeah, of course. You had of course, at Leyton Orient. You had a spell there. So I cut the story a little bit short, but you went up to Blackburn. Yeah. You did it very, very well in training, and then you played, I think, was it three games for the B team?
Yeah, I was there for just over 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks, and you were very well received, really respected, and your performances in the games were exceptional. I say that as your dad.
Yeah. One of the games was with first team as well in the pre-season.
Yeah, and Steve, who was in charge of a certain level of recruitment, but he was mainly with the first team.
Yeah,
and there was another gentleman running that section. He said, "Look, if I remember rightly, he said to you, Myles, you can have a great career in the game, but we don't have the budget right now. I've already bought someone in to play," and basically, that was the end of that for the moment. And I remember Steve being really, really upset, because he said to me, "Listen, he reminds me a lot of a young player they took on, Chris Smalling, who came into the game quite late, and he said you had all the attributes." And unfortunately, that didn't happen then. And then when Steve became the actual manager, one of the first things he did was he wanted to sign you. And then you went and played for Craig Brown at Aberdeen, on the premise that you were coming back and joining Blackburn officially in the summer of that year. And it was an exciting time for you. You worked incredibly hard on fitness and everything in order for you to be the best you possibly could when you went back to pre-season training. You had a good pre-season, culminating in you coming on for a few minutes in the Asia Trophy in Hong Kong, in front of 55. And I remember Martin Tyler saying to this day, he was doing the commentary, and he went, "A lot's been said about Myles Anderson. I think you replaced David Dunn, if I remember rightly." Yeah. He said, "But he looks like he's played in this position all his life," or words to that effect. And then, unfortunately, there was mass hysteria at the football club. Some of it surrounding myself, because of my relationship with the then owners, which was really good and natural and special. But a lot of people had their noses put out of place within the football club, and through various media sections and all the online stuff. It got really, really nasty, very personal. I don't really want to go into that, but it really had an incredible impact on our family.
Yeah, of course. If you don't, I'm going to go into that.
Okay, which by all means you go into it, and that was the first time that you must have, and you're going to go into it, experience some incredibly difficult moments. Bearing in mind that the actual lads really respected you, not only as a player, but as a human being, because you're intelligent, you spoke all these languages. I remember Dunny saying to you one day, I was like, what are you doing?
And Gil Givet as well said to me, I'm in the wrong job.
Right, you should be working for the United Nations, right? So the boys were all with you. Obviously the manager was, but it was an incredibly difficult time for you. I remember being so proud the day that you were on the bench for the first team.
First game of the season.
I think it was against
in the Premier League against Wolves.
And I remember seeing you get off the coach, and as a dad, I was like, I can't even explain how I felt, because I knew how hard you'd worked, and I knew if given a chance, you were going to be, a top player, because you had the mentality, you had the fitness, and not least of all, you had the ability. And then unfortunately, the everything that happened at Blackburn, which was so unfair.
Not just for me, by the way, for a lot. For Steve, for Keane, for the players.
Because the misunderstanding by the fans fundamentally of what the owners were trying to do, and they are, I will still say, they're incredibly spiritual, good people. They've invested an enormous amount of money in the football club, and they wanted things run the way that they wanted it run. And unfortunately, a lot of people couldn't quite understand that or accept that, and that created a very, very difficult atmosphere for anybody and all that were connected with the football club at that time, not least of all the players, of which you were one. So if you want to, talk about what you really went through openly during that period, I'm sure that's something that genuine people who care about people would like to know about, learn about.
Yeah. Thank you, Dad. I think that, you mentioned the Wolves game when I was on the bench there in the Premier League, first game of the season, and that was actually it was still a great moment, because obviously I joined the club in the pre-season of that year. I think it was 2011, so July 2011, and obviously I knew, because of that you had some kind of connection with, or you'd help the owners, and you had the connection obviously with Steve. Obviously I knew that I had to be 100 times better than the other players that were trying to come through, for the boys to think, okay, he's all right, him. So even from the starting position, I was already in a difficult position. But like you mentioned, because I was determined to prove myself, work harder than anyone else. I remember at the end of the first the pre-season away trip, the pre-season tour, I think we went to Austria for a week, and I remember when we landed back in the airport, Steve Keane and John Jensen, obviously manager and assistant manager at the time, they pulled me and they said, like, how did you find that? And I said, it was, so they said, look, that was, you've arrived now, not that it was easy, but like, you've arrived, you've done your bit, you've shown to the lads have all accepted you, which they had done. And obviously you got some Blackburn legends there, David Dunn, some top unbelievable players. Gil Givet won the World Cup, Chris Samba, Ryan Nelson, Michel Salgado, all these players. And I'm thinking, in my mind, who am I to be here? But then actually went out and did it. And they were accepting of me. And it was actually all going pretty well. It was pretty cool. I'll never forget, I remember my first few months there, I just loved it. And I was always smiling and laughing. And I remember there was a player there called Zach Ailey, left back, great guy. And I remember him saying to me one time, like, in his Scouse accent, like, lads, like, you're so happy every day. He said, we'll speak again in a few months' time. And obviously I didn't understand what he meant by that. But as things progressed, of course there was, more and more on top of what would be normal for a footballer, and the normal pressures and stresses and the negative and toxic environment that it can be. I soon understood what he meant by that. And then, like I say, of course, all the stuff on top of that happened.
And what was a real shame is that you never got the credit, even from within, for how you were both on and off the pitch. I remember you played against Manchester United one night.
In an under-21s game.
In under-21s game. Paul Pogba was playing. I think you said afterwards that's the best player you've ever played against.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And you played with Grant Hanley.
Yeah.
And you got a fantastic 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
I remember going back and watching the game on MUTV.
Yeah.
And Paddy Craren, Manchester United legend, was doing the sort of co-commentary.
Yeah.
And he said, Anderson and Hanley are the best two central defenders I have seen playing for years and years. And and United had some very, very good young players playing that night. And I think the game was at Accrington, wasn't it? Was it Accrington?
Yeah, wherever they play.
And as your dad, I remember coming out after that game thinking, wow, you've really, really, you got a fantastic chance.
Yeah.
And then, sorry.
Yeah, no. And I remember Charlie Nicholas as well contacted, I think he reached out to me after because he had watched the game.
Okay.
And said, like, done great, keep going, kind of thing. And that was but that was still early on in the season. That was before all the stuff kind of happened. Because, like I say, on the bench against Wolves first game, and I think we dominated the game, ended up losing, right? So to lose your first home game of the season, not ideal. Then we went to Villa again. Now I'm part of the squad. We lost, obviously. Villa away is a tough game, and then we played Everton at home, third game of the season, and we missed 2 penalties, and they scored, I think, in the last minute.
Last kick of the game.
Right, and I think we lost.
I think it was Mikel Arteta, wasn't it?
I'm not 100% sure.
Penalty,
I think we lost 1-0. I think they scored a penalty.
Yeah.
And so now, you've gone from potentially winning your first 2 home games of the season, 6 points mid to, upper echelons of the table, to now we've lost 3 in a row. Steve Keane's under pressure. Fans aren't happy. People asking questions left, right and centre. And this is actually what I help players with. Like, I don't know why, but I felt, a responsibility for that. Obviously didn't help then going to the stadium and seeing banners, Keane and Anderson out. And obviously at 21 years old, I took that weight on my own shoulders. Whether that had anything to do with me or not, I don't know. But it felt like it did, and it felt, personal.
Well, the truth is, it obviously didn't. It was just personal. Sometimes people want to point the fingers at people for no reason, and unfortunately, at that moment in time, you were taking a fair amount of the brunt of it for no apparent reason.
And I remember it got to a point where I think we played Bolton at home. Obviously, that's a local derby. And I was advised not to come to the game. Obviously, normally I'd been part of the squad. I was on the bench a couple of times, but the rest of it, I was part of the 18, 20-man squad, and I'd travel and, do the warm-up or whatever. But yeah, it got to that point where I think, and then I'd then gone from training with the first team to now I'm training just with the 21s, and there was a couple of us as well. But yeah, to be advised to not actually come to the game and then watch it on TV and see again the kind of malicious and aggression towards like Steve Keane and the players, and to see that the banners like Anderson out, and whether it was talking about you or me, like it's our family name. So that was mad. As a 21-year-old, and then other things like, I think David Dunny like pulled me on the coach one time. We were on the way to a game, and he was like to me, "You all right, mate?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm cool. You all right?" He said, "Listen, don't worry." He said, like, "Me and my boys will look after you if you ever have any trouble. Like, me and my boys will look after you." And I said, "Oh, thanks so much." Like, why? Like, I didn't know, but what had happened is that people have been writing all this stuff online. Dunny had obviously seen it, or his boys had told him things like, stuff about you, mum, me, someone wrote that they knew Holly, obviously my sister, and said that she, she goes up to Nottingham Uni often to see her friends who are there. And this guy had written that next time she comes up, he's going to rape her.
I remember.
Right? Things like that.
Yeah. Take a breath, pal.
Yeah. And, and obviously I've had to do a lot of work on myself to move beyond these traumas, which, I'm happy to speak about now because it's really important that people hear this. But the person or the people who are writing these comments from behind their computer screens or whatever, they don't
anonymously.
Right, anonymously, they don't understand the impact that it can have on a human being. Look at the abuse that Harry Maguire was under. I actually tried to reach out to Harry Maguire, but obviously it's very difficult, to offer support, and he's dealt with that unbelievably well. But years of being abused. The guy's he's a human being, just doing his job, doing the best. People are writing this, that, and the other about him, and obviously I feel that because I've been through it. I remember one day I came into the training ground and Junior Hoylett said to me, "Yo, doggy," he said, "Have you changed your number?" I said, "What do you mean have I changed my number?" "No," he said, "You messaged me from a new phone last night, a new BBM." Back then it was BlackBerry. I said, "It's not me." He said, "Man, like someone's pretending to be you, adding all the Blackburn players. I think he was adding Grant, adding Junior. I don't know who it was, but someone pretending to be me, and all these stuff, all these things." I remember one time I was on the bench. We played Newcastle in the Carling Cup. I think it was the last 16. We were winning 2-0 with about 5 minutes to go. So the manager said, like, to me and I think a couple of others, "Go and warm up." So young players, so we're going to come on. And as I'm warming up, got fans, not many, but you can hear a couple of them saying this and that. I'm thinking, these are my own fans. Like, what's going on here? I'm 21 years old. Like, I haven't done anything. All I'm doing is trying to be the best that I can be every day. You're my own fans. And in the end, what actually happened is that we conceded 2 goals in like the last 5 minutes and it went to extra time. So I never ended up coming on. Thankfully, we actually won the game in extra time, but I didn't come on. And these were the moments when I actually started. So as a football player, you want to be on the pitch, you want to play. And when things like this are happening, I'm thinking, please God, don't put me on. Don't put me on the pitch. Which is crazy to think. You do all that work, you put all that work in to be on the pitch. And now I'm thinking, don't put me on the pitch. I don't want to be out there to be screamed at, shouted at, shot at, abused. I remember watching, we played Man United away and we won. Yak scored 2. I think we won 2-1 or 3-2 over Christmas. I remember watching the game from home. Again, they'd said to me, like, stay away kind of thing. So, and I remember, I think it was either before the game or half time, like Robbie Savage was saying, like, "Where's Myles Anderson?" Like, they brought this player in, "Where's Myles Anderson?" I'm thinking, you've got no idea what the hell's going on right now. And you're just happily saying that. And it's fair to say I didn't take that too well. And obviously I've never spoken with him, but I don't know him, and he obviously didn't mean anything by it. But it's easy to sit there and say these things about an individual, that you don't know and you don't understand the situation, you don't know the person. And it's I'm 34 now, right? So I can take that, and that's not a problem. But at 21, like you said, I was in education till I was 18. 3 years later, I'm getting, called out on Sky Sports. Just madness. And even to come back to another incident, I remember, obviously, because you went on Sky Sports to do an interview to, I suppose, just speak your truth, right? Yeah. Because you were getting hammered.
Yeah.
So I think you wanted to come out let's speak your truth as well. And I remember that day, it was a morning. I don't remember exactly what day it was, but it was a morning. And the whole training ground at Blackburn. So you can imagine the whole training ground stopped. Like we didn't train. And everyone was either in the first team dressing room watching it on the TV, or the 21s dressing room, or the 18s dressing room, or in the staff room. And I remember thinking like, fucking hell, like this is too much. Like, and I went, so we had the canteen, and then we had like a bit behind the canteen where there's like computers just before you went into like the analysis rooms. And I remember just sitting there, I think there's a TV there. I remember just sitting there on my own thinking like, this has to be a dream, or just let this, you know, you just coming out and defending and protecting yourself and me and also other players at the club. I remember you mentioned a lot of young players.
Yeah,
and,
I did, yeah.
You know, but yeah, I just took myself off. I was thinking, what the hell?
The players were...
But yeah, so then I remember, like, obviously, you know, I was very friendly with most of the players, all the players. And I remember Nick Blackman came over, Martin Olsen came over, Junior as well. So they all came over and were like, don't worry, man, like, it's cool, like, you know, like, you're one of us, like, you're with us, like, it's cool, don't worry, you know. And it's funny because I saw Martin and Marcus Olsen in Sweden in about a couple of months back now, and I openly spoke to them about this because they were saying, oh, we love the work you're doing with the players, you know, how did you get into it and stuff, and why are you doing that? And I obviously explained to them where it all pretty much started back at Blackburn, these moments that we're talking about now. I asked Martin and Marcus Olsen, like, what was your observation, what was your interpretation of that situation, like, you two from the outside? I mean, you're inside because you're there, but from the outside. And they said they didn't even think about it, which is crazy. And again, coming back to the work that I do with players, it's what's got you. You know, Jodie Spencer says your personality creates your personal reality. It's you and your mind. And so whilst I was going through what I thought I was going through, or what was real for me, the other boys, really and truly, Martin, I remember he said, like, no one, like, everyone was cool because everyone knew me. Everyone knew me, and everyone knew me as a player and as a human being. And they were absolutely cool with me, and they didn't really think anything of it. But obviously in my mind, I had created, you know, from...
You had allowed your mind
to
create, basically. But if you look at where you are today, and if you look at everything that you've achieved, I'm not only talking about in your football life, but in your life, if that experience hadn't have occurred, you wouldn't be given the gift now of your experiences and your knowledge, fundamentally, to help the world. So
that's which is my mission and my purpose.
Which is your mission, and you are going to achieve your mission in which way that pans out, because you are fundamentally an incredibly gentle soul with an enormous amount of knowledge, and not only the knowledge but actual experience. So you often see people talking about things and trying to teach people things, but they've never actually done it. You look at football, you see lots of punters and people talking about this player, that player. They've never been in a dressing room. They've never been on a training ground. They've never been at the end of the wrath of a manager's attack, right? But for good and bad, you have. So everything that you say and everything you try and not teach people but help people with is coming from the realness of what you have experienced. And that is why what you're doing is marvelous. and real. And I just hope that many people that follow you really do end up participating in the work that you are doing, because there is no question that it will help them enormously in their lives.
For sure. No, I appreciate that. And obviously now you can look back and understand that everything that you go through, everything one goes through, everything I went through is for a reason, is for lessons, is for growth.
Yeah.
It's to give purpose further down the line. But in that moment,
In that moment.
and I remember calling you after a game once. I played for the 21s, and we played Everton at home at Lee Valley. We lost 4-2. But obviously with everything that was going on away from football, well, within Blackburn, but on a human level, I remember my head was all over the place.
That wasn't the night you scored one of the goals of the season.
And that's what I'm going to tell you. And I remember I scored an overhead kick that night. We lost 4-2, but I remember the boys pulled me, because when I scored that goal, obviously there had been a lot of noise, and if you watch it, I actually do this as a celebration to say, like, leave me alone, like, just shut up and leave me alone and just let me be, basically was my message. Obviously the boys pulled me and were like, you scored a goal in a reserve game and you're giving it like this celebration, like, are you all right? I remember Lowe was large, Jason Lowe. But obviously but again, I knew what I was going through, but I didn't speak about it with anyone, and they probably didn't understand it either. And like what I said, that Martin Olsen said, no one really thought of it, because everyone else has got their own stuff going on, and everyone's worried about their performance and getting the 3 points on the Saturday. And so, and I actually went to the doctor at the time, because and my experience from stress and struggles is that it comes out in the body. That's my experience. Sooner or later, it comes out in the body. And this whole situation at Blackburn had me with severe tight chest. I remember when I called you after that game and you were like, oh, you scored over. And I said, yeah, but I'm having a nervous breakdown. And what I thought was, whatever that means. And I remember I went to the doctor and I said, listen, like, my chest, like, I don't know what's going on. So I've always been, a happy-go-lucky, loads of energy, smiling person. And I just remember saying to him, like, my chest is so tight, like, I'm struggling to breathe and stuff. And he basically just said, look, I think he gave me a couple of pills. He said, look, a couple of pills, and he said, look, just go home and rest now. And that was basically as far as my opening up and support.
That was it.
Went. That was pretty much it. And it was pretty much like, just get on with it. And then obviously it wasn't going well for the team. And then I'm looking at the abuse that Steve Keane was getting. I'm thinking, like, how can I even complain about anything when this man's standing on the sidelines every game, people literally going up to within about 5 meters of him, screaming at him, throwing him season tickets, all of this. So I was just like, look, let me just get my head down and get on with it, basically.
And you did.
So I did. Yeah. And obviously, to where I am now at 34, that there were many struggles. And obviously it wasn't until really I started doing the work on myself on a mental and emotional level that I started to be able to navigate my way better through the football industry.
I think that, unfortunately, and this just doesn't apply only to football, but it applies to anything where people are doing things professionally in the public eye.
Yeah.
So whether that is football or golf or cricket or badminton or tennis or whatever, we're very quick to praise people, but we're very quick to do the exact opposite.
Quicker, I would say.
And that it doesn't matter who you are, it has an incredible impact on your being And if there are no outlets for support, it's very, very difficult. You know, you even look at someone like Rory McIlroy, who's arguably one of the greatest golfers of all time. Take the money away from it. But what he's experienced in the last couple of weeks, nearly winning 2 major tournaments and not from being nailed on favourite and making a couple of mistakes that cost him the tournaments. The abuse and the questions around him with everything that he's achieved. I mean, that must have some kind of impact on someone even as massive as Rory McIlroy. Is he speaking to someone? AJ went into that fight, nailed on favourite in most people's eyes. Is he speaking? You see it every day of your life. Expectation levels. When you get there, all the plaudits. When you don't, the complete opposite. Which is why everyone in the public eye, and even politicians, when it goes well, great. When it doesn't, bang. Where are they getting their support from? But none more so than in professional sport, because you're so up there and open. And that's why what you're doing can have an incredibly positive impact on everyone's lives.
I think you've said it right. Externally, everyone's happy to bring someone up, put them down, do this with them, do that with them. And so it comes down to the relationship that one has with themselves and working on that, being kind to oneself, uplifting oneself, empowering oneself, so that, you know, this one can say that about you, this one can do this to you, and it doesn't affect you.
But you've learnt that now, haven't you?
Well, it's taken
you a few years, isn't it?
Years, yeah. And it's taken. But the thing is, when you're trying to become, when you have an elite mentality and you're trying to become the best player and the best athlete and the best version of yourself that you can be, it's intense. And every day you're on it and you're on it and you want it. I wanted it so badly. And it's when it's not going your way, or when you can't see the progress, like, then what? You know, then what? And that's why even coming to Chievo, when I was at Chievo Verona in Serie A, obviously I've gone there as a young player, well, 25, but their backline was all like 35 plus. You know, 2 centre halves were unbelievable. Dainelli and I think Gamberini, they'd taken them, they were the centre half pairing at Fiorentina, and they'd brought them together to Chievo. So they'd played together for years. So, you know, I was never going to get in ahead of them. But it's like, I remember every day, first person in, every day, last person out, the only one really in the ice bath. And, you know, Heta, actually, Pep Hetemaier, he was good like that as well. But you're pushing so hard, or I was pushing so hard physically, but I wasn't really working on the mind and emotions and dealing with the fact. I was just repeating the same thing. It's like banging my head against the wall. And then again, I spoke about it before, it comes out in the body. And that's why at Chievo, at a certain point, I basically collapsed in the shower. And the physio found me in there. He said, like, what the hell's going on? I said, I don't know. I can't move. I don't know. I was just pushing and pushing and pushing. Couldn't get anywhere near the team, which is obviously why I'd gone there, because I thought I was going to break through. I was on the bench a few times, but that was it. And just went into serious. And then he was Fofo, his name was. He said, "Oh, come on, I'll take you to the hospital." So he took me to the hospital. And I think I was there for a few hours, even the night. That happened a couple of times. Again, so I'm pushing and pushing and pushing on a physical level, pushing myself to the limits. almost punishing myself because it wasn't happening. And my way to deal with it was, it's not happening, push harder. It's not happening, speaking to myself like a piece of shit, basically, and punishing instead of doing the complete opposite, which is obviously what I teach now and preach now and practice myself as well, and catch myself when I'm not. And again, to go to I might as well talk about everything. To go to the Hartlepool situation, where as a player, if you speak to most players, they will say they want to find a home, right? A club they can call home. I spoke to Nicky Kabamba today, and he's feeling that at Barnet, a club that is his home. Found his feet, he said. Scored 50 goals in 2 seasons. And with Hartlepool, I finally, at 28, 29, having travelled here, there and everywhere, abroad, Italy, Scotland, all over England. At Hartlepool, after the first season, playing 40 odd games, I finally believed that I'd found a home. My teeth knocked out. I was wearing the Hartlepool coloured gum shield. The fans accepted me, the players, the management. And then obviously another challenge is that, I can't control if the chairman decides to keep or to sack the manager, which is obviously what happened, that he decided to sack Craig Hignett, who I developed a great relationship with on and off the pitch. And I found him to be an incredibly good manager, not just of myself, but of others. And if you speak to the other players, they will vouch for that.
Well, just to stop you there.
Yeah.
And this is in the public domain. That Craig Hignett himself, who played many, many games at the highest level, played with some great players, quote, Myles Anderson is the best professional I've ever had the pleasure of either playing with or managing.
Yeah.
Now, that's priceless.
Of course. But the thing is, I had to be, or I believed I had to be, and I made sure I was, because I couldn't give anyone any excuses to say, oh, you're only there because you're dad, and you're only there because of this. And so that was why I was the first one there. That was why, living with the boys, they'd think, where the hell has he gone? And I'd be in the gym for hours afterwards, making sure every single thing was taken care of meticulously.
Can I just stop
on a physical level?
You made a good point. Maybe this is a good time to completely, for once and for all, talk about he's only there because of his dad.
Yeah. But it's not true. I know that now.
It not only is it not true, it is a total and utter fabrication of the truth. Because if you've played hundreds of games now,
yeah, of course.
Right? If you weren't good enough, you wouldn't be playing anyway. Okay? And just for the record, and I've never been a manager, I've never been a chairman, I'm just the agent representing footballers, okay?
And my dad.
And your dad, the most important thing. I don't remember too many people talking about managers taking their sons into clubs, managers making their sons assistant managers, managers taking, I don't think I've ever, but because I was the agent of Steve Keane, that's the only reason that you signed for Blackburn.
I know.
When are people going to finally understand that football in particular, it doesn't matter who you know, if someone is not good enough, they are going nowhere. And you proved time and time again, any dressing room you were in, any club you were at, you were always incredibly popular with the players, respected by the fans. I thought fans at Hartlepool absolutely loved you.
Yeah.
Because they loved your honesty, they loved your desire, your bravery. And that's what you're showing now in the work that you're...
For sure. But you can...
I'm sorry for doing that, but I think it was the right moment to once and for all kill all that. Only there, he's only there because of this. This one's here because...
But I know that.
Absolute garbage.
But I know that now, and obviously for a few years, but at 21, as a youngster, and everyone's saying it, then unless you understand how to manage that, then that can actually become your core beliefs as well.
Sure.
Which they did.
Yeah.
And I remember playing for Hartlepool. We played Sutton away. And obviously there's not, I don't know how many fans, but that was that game where we were 2-0 down and we came back, drew 2-2.
Is that the one that ran back 45 yards and cleared one off the line?
Yeah, it's that game.
Yeah.
And I remember I've heard a Sutton fan scream like Anderson's still playing. He's only started playing because he's only playing because of his dad. And I'm thinking, but then I could deal with it. But I'm thinking, bloody hell, this is like 7-8 years later, and these people are still, these external sources are still going on and on and on about it. And it's about, and this is such key work that I do with the players, make sure that those other people's opinions and all of this, they don't take them on. They don't become your core beliefs, right? Like what I did for so many years. And obviously, like I say, now I absolutely know at 34, having played, as you said, hundreds of games at different levels, a connection can get you an opportunity, right? Like players have agents, players have friends, players know managers. But ultimately, like you say, if one is not good enough, or one is at that level but has been placed at that level, everyone finds their level eventually. Everyone finds their level. But and I know that now, of course. And to come back to the Hartlepool thing I was saying about when I'd arrived and then Craig Ignat got sacked, and then Dave Challoner came in and he was cool, but he basically said, for the way that I want to play, that he wanted to play, he couldn't play me and the other centre half, Gary Liddell, because we were both older, more experienced, but obviously slower. So he brought in a youngster and he said to me, look, you've done nothing wrong. You've been great. I want you to be a big part of the squad. But if I'm going to play, it's only going to be either one of you or Lids. Lids was a Hartlepool legend, played many, many games, great player. And then he played the young boy who's quicker than me. So obviously then you understand nothing I can do. I'm not getting in the team. But obviously I didn't accept that at first. So then, Dave Challoner used to say about we need people to run more in training. So I would always make sure I was in the top 1, 2 or 3 of distance covered in training, but still couldn't get in. And make sure I was doing this, but still couldn't get in. And this. And that's when I understood that, I took a step back for a moment and understood that no matter, some things are not in your control, right?
Well, a lot of things,
most things are not.
As a player, the only thing that's in your control is your performance.
Yeah. But obviously, having finally found that home and thinking, now in my mind, I'm thinking I'll be here a few years, vice captain, maybe even a coach, something like this. You start to think these things after so long trying to find that home, for it to then change like that. And that's when, obviously, well, that's when obviously then COVID came and I came home, and obviously that's when I had a massive shock. When I came out of the shower, I put my hand through my head, and my hair was falling out my head because of the accumulation of, it wasn't just a one-off, the Hartlepool situation, it was Aberdeen, Blackburn, Monza, Pro Patria, Chievo, Lupa Roma.
But you still carried on raising money for charity.
And I still carried on. Yeah, people don't know, obviously. People don't know because I was running with a hat on my head, covering massive bald patch that I had. I remember I went on holiday with Andrew, my best mate, and I was wearing a hat everywhere. We would go to a bar and I'll be wearing a hat. But yeah, it's funny because that was probably the first time with the charity stuff that actually I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put myself out there. And even with the issue, like I say, I covered it up. But that was actually the first moment where I realized, finally, after so many years of having my identity of being so deeply ingrained in being, I'm Myles Anderson, the footballer, I did something completely different. Still using football to bring people together.
Well, you did.
Which I did, right? And raised, I think it was £20,000 in the end. And also helped people to get out their house and exercise and come together, and still kind of, even though the clubs weren't playing, they were still involved in this, this charity runs and cycles. But that was probably the first time, obviously before I went into football, I knew I had much more to offer. But then you get stuck in this, or I got stuck in this, and then I was great, because it was great to do that, because I showed to myself that, my friend Sam Cox and I, we always say, more than just a footballer. That was when we first connected, when we first met at Hampton and Richmond, we connected because we said that to each other. Much more than just a footballer.
Well, I think from this particular facilitation moment, you've been incredibly brave, open, sharing your innermost feelings, experiences with the outside world, culminating in you doing what you're doing now. And it's a gift.
The hard-earned one.
It's a hard-earned one, but it's a gift that you are now offering to the world. And I'm sure there are many, 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 many people out there, I don't know whether any of them will ever see this, that have experienced, obviously not exactly the same moments, but similar moments 100%. Every day on a training ground, every day on a Saturday afternoon, every time you miss a putt to miss the cut, every time you miss a match point and don't win the set. It's every day. And everyone needs someone to be able to open up to and learn how to deal with the difficulties and the emotions that life throws up. And I don't think there'll be too many people, if anyone, better out there to help than my son.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. And all I would say is, firstly, thanks for coming on, facilitating, and holding the space for me to share some of my story, my struggles, and that's led me to where I am today, which I'm really, really proud of.
And we're both still smiling.
We're both still smiling. We're both still talking to one another, even though the stuff that was going on tried to have an impact on even our
family
and our whole family relationship. But
well done,
say, thank you, Dad. And what I would say is,
very proud of you, pal.
Thank you, Joe.
Well done.
Me too, of you. And I think what I would say is, to everyone watching or listening, is just take care of your butterfly. Take care of your butterfly. Keep uplifting yourself. Keep reminding yourself of what an amazing person you are. How incredible and powerful you are. How much you've got to give to yourself, for others around you, to the entire world. And keep shining your light. Keep shining your light.
Brilliant.
I think we'll leave it at that.
Brilliant.
Thanks for tuning in for today's episode and giving your time for me to share some of my stories and my journey with you guys. I hope this has given some valuable insights and knowledge into some of the difficulties, struggles, and challenges that one faces in the world of professional sports. In keeping with World Mental Health Day, I'm really, really excited to announce the launch of my first self-paced online program designed specifically to help you to take care of your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health and performance, both in and out of competition. If this is something that you'd be interested in or you'd benefit from, then head over to my website today, www.unleashtheplayer.com, and in the coupon code section, type the word FR podcast for your 50% discount. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.